Hey, what's up? It is the Nerdy Entrepreneur. And as you can see, we are back. And unfortunately, some people will be watching this from their home because they have no place to go tomorrow because they don't got laid off. Yes, yes, yes. So I wanted to talk about this before, but the layoffs have not happened. They were just announced by Mark. And by Mark, I mean Mark Zuckerberg, the CEO of Meta slash Facebook and Instagram and WhatsApp. Okay. And I waited because I was going to see what was going to happen with the layoffs. Because here's the thing: a month or two, like 2 months ago, actually no, more than 2 months ago, because we're in 2025 right now. Crazy to think it, right? But in 2024, the close to the end of 2024, like November area, he had already announced that they were going to have to do another round of layoffs. They were going to get rid of about 5%. So for Meta, 5% of people being laid off, you're talking about 3,600 people. Okay. And what he had said, now getting this from LinkedIn, this is what I was reading on a LinkedIn article, was that they were laying off people who were the bottom performers in the company. That's what he said. And when I read it, I had to go back and read that article a couple of times on different occasions. Like, let me make sure this is right because you got to fact check what you read because maybe it was taken out of context. Maybe it was like someone because you just got to check because sometimes you read one thing and it's like, oh, it's not what it is. Someone actually said something different, right? So before I was going to go on a soapbox. I was like, let me just make sure this is what he actually said about this particular thing and not something that was taken out of context and he was talking about something different at the time. But I read a couple of different articles. I was like, all right, let me check. And it was true. I'm like, dude, you did not just say that the people you were about to lay off, that's going to happen next year because he made this announcement in November, were the bottom barrel people in your company that you were just getting rid of. I was like, you did not just say that for that to be printed in somebody's article. Because usually when companies lay people off, the CEO does not go on an interview and say, oh, well, this was the crap. We're just getting rid of the crap. Usually they don't do that, because they have PR prep when they have to make these types of announcements. Because usually a company that is laying off people is usually a sign of not good things going on in that company. And so they're a little bit more, trained on what to say. But he said that. That's why I went and says, like, Lord, let me just make sure that's what he actually said before I say anything or respond to some stuff. And yeah, he did say that. So the 3,600 people who are being laid off or started being laid off today from Meta are people that he considers the bottom barrel people based on performance reviews. And I was like, damn. And if you don't understand why that means something, it's like, look, if you get laid off from a job, right? The last thing you need is that there are articles out there where your CEO says that the reason you got laid off was because you were one of the lowest performers in the company. That's the last thing you need chasing you as you now have to figure out what you're going to do for your bills and what's your next steps to get a job. And you're going through all the emotional turmoil that you're going to go through with being laid off, right? And I'm a person who's been laid off before, so I know exactly those feelings like to be laid off and fired. That's happened in my lifetime, right? So I know what it's like. I know what it's like to have to turn around and announce that, and so I've been through it, right? That's the last damn thing you need to see your CEO publicly blasting you in that way. Because I'm like, damn, he just don't give a damn, or he missed his PR training for this, right? And I was like, damn, because here's the thing: he made that announcement last year in about October, November that they were going to do another round of layoffs. At that point, Meta had already laid off people a few months prior, but those people, from my understanding, had gotten most of them had gotten severance packages, right? This round of people, I was reading something from some HR, people who are experts in HR talking about, well, since he said that, this probably means that this group of people these 3,600 people that were being let go probably are not going to be offered severance packages. So it's going to be like this your last paycheck kind of deal. And I'm like, mm. Now I don't well, like that was just their opinion because of what he had said. Maybe some people out of that 3,600 will get severance packages that'll last them 3 months or so, but most of them maybe not, right? And it's just like, it's these things. It's these things that sometimes companies kind of screw you over because here's let me just break something down because I've work in tech, I have clients in tech and everything else. Let me just break this down for you. Companies like Meta, or before it was Facebook, are part of what they call FANG companies, if you don't know what those are. These are the top tech companies that a lot of people are trying their damnedest to get jobs at. Okay. And it's very difficult to get jobs at these places. Very tough. And when you do get a job there are people who get ridiculous salaries. I mean, I knew someone who was making a $500,000 a year. I knew someone who was married to somebody else who was making like 600K, and they weren't a VP. I think they were a manager or something, right? They're making nice paychecks there, right? Here's the thing. When these people get laid off from these jobs and it's a downturn in these spaces and the other companies aren't hiring for their particular position, right? It is hard for them to find a place to be because one, they won't apply to jobs outside of that ecosystem because they want to continue to work in that ecosystem. So what they hope to happen is that, this passes on after a year or two and then they go back working for Meta or they work for Google or Netflix or Amazon or whoever. The other thing that they hope for is that the next job they're going to jump to while they've been laid off is going to pay them the same amount of money. Now, there's not a lot of tech jobs that are going to pay you $500,000 a year. So they wind up being unemployed for long periods of time. And not everybody's making $500,000 a year. Even people who are making like 180, 200,000, there are places that would hire them, but they're not thinking of applying to those places or realizing that they can because they're trying to stay in this tech elitist atmosphere. And it is very elitist. Okay. They're not thinking that, oh, I should go try to be something in investment banking, and investment banking pays good money for IT, but oh, if you do that, you got to dress a certain way. You got to come to an office. Maybe the last job you had was not required for you to come to an office, but you're going to sit at home being unemployed. And that's what's going to happen to the majority of those people is that they're going to sit at home being unemployed. That's just going to be the reality. There's a lot of people in the tech space now who are sitting at home unemployed, trying to get a job at a handful of companies. So now we just got another few thousand added on to that. And guess what? I think Microsoft also announced that they will be doing their round of layoffs shortly as well. So you got these large tech enterprise companies doing layoffs. And some of these positions were experimental positions because they worked in these experimental departments. So if you're not familiar with tech and stuff like that, they have departments where they would give them some weird name and they're going to be a research department. So these people worked in these research departments. So they have titles that don't really exist anywhere else in the market. So when you get laid off, it's like, hey, I was the chief innovation of microchips officer. Well, that doesn't exist anywhere else, right? So it's very hard to match this made up title somewhere else where it doesn't exist in the market. So a lot of these people worked in these departments, worked on these very experimental things that Meta was doing and decided they're not no longer doing anymore. And they're going to have a really difficult time because one, they're probably not going to get the same salary that these other places did. They won't be able to do the same or similar type of work if they were in like experimental stuff. And so they're going to have to figure out, what they're going to do and do quickly because, um, there's a channels on here that talk about finance. And although some of these people were making hundreds of thousands of dollars a year, they were not making great personal finance decisions. And most of them are working or living paycheck to paycheck. Now, I'm in a few tech groups where that conversation has come up where you have people who are making, over a quarter million dollars a year who are literally living paycheck to paycheck, right? And it seems like ridiculous because I grew up in a way where, no one made that much money, right? So the idea that someone's making 350,000 a year and they're literally living paycheck to paycheck. So when something like this happens and they get laid off, that they can't survive even a month or two would seem crazy, but a lot of these people cannot survive. Now, there's some wonderful YouTubers out there who, unfortunately got laid off and they're in a similar position where, hey, they were at a six-figure tech job. They're making 180, 200, 250. And now they're in a position where they've lost their house. And they've had to move back home for those who've had, there's one guy who wound up moving into his car because he was down bad. I think he worked at Tesla at one point, and so this is reality, that people making this much money will not be able to find an equivalent job that will pay them that much because they worked at a company that put them in a made up department that doesn't exist nowhere else. And all of a sudden, the company said, you know what, we ain't going to do this project no more. And we're going to say, bye, peace, and good luck to you. And they're going to be all over the place struggling to find another job. One, because of pride, because, hey, how would you feel working at Meta or Google or Microsoft and getting laid off? And then all of a sudden, now you got to figure out, ooh, I can't apply to this place or that place because they're only going to pay me $80,000. I'm worth $300,000 because Meta told me so. Mark, when he hired me, told me I was worth 300K. So when I go out into the job market, I am worth 300K. That's not true. And that's going to be a reality check, unfortunately, for a lot of these folks entering the job market now that they're getting laid off from Meta. And then soon we'll have our Microsoft folks join them too, because they also have announced layoffs. And this is just the reality. And sometimes when I talk to people who are younger than me and they want to work at these tech companies, I warn them about this sort of thing. I was like, look, tech is tech, right? There is the elitists of tech. So you got your Metas and, your Netflixes and Amazons, the elitists of tech. And then you got everywhere else, right? I don't care if you want to work for Meta or Amazon or whoever. Understand that all these companies have layoffs. They will lay you off most likely at some point. If you work at tech, just go check out some of these tech channels from guys and ladies who've been in tech for like 30, 40 years. And they talk about, hey, up and down, you're employed one day and then you're laid off, the software you're working on is phased out, and you have to go through these up and down things because a lot of those channels give some great advice and, hey, why you need to go to conferences, why you need to continue to network and know people in your company and outside your company, because one day you're going to get hit with a layoff that is probably no fault of your own. They're just discontinuing your department, which is also happening at Meta. Some of these people are from these, made up experimental departments being laid off. This is what's happening to them. And you're going to you need to be able to pull out your cell phone, send a text, call somebody, send an email, say, hey, listen, I'm about to get laid off. I just got laid off today. If you have a feeler out there, this is my blah, blah, blah. You're going to need to do that one day in tech. You're going to need to do that. And this is what some folks are not understanding. Because I go in these groups and, hey, I'm the nerd entrepreneur. Do I own my own business? Yes. Have I been in companies like this and worked and seen stuff happen? Yeah, it does happen. I am about, you can have your main job, also have your side hustles together, because you don't know when stuff will happen. Maybe, hopefully, these folks are not laid off no more than 90 days and they'll have another job. And I hope that some of them realize that, hey, I need to figure out how to make some money on the side, even if it's a consulting business, because some of them, they have the experience. They could be consultants on the side, making a couple of $1,000s or more. So when layoffs happen, they have some type of installation. They could do that, right? But most of them don't. Why? Because they just want to go to work and go home and chill. I'm going to go work, go home and chill. They don't think about doing things to improve themselves, to make them more marketable as an employee at other places besides the place that they're in, going for promotions, knowing when to leave a company and then come back to a company to get more money, or the importance of investing in things that make money without you having to worry about, oh, did I come to work on time? Did I make this meeting? They don't realize that. So when these things happen, they go into depressions. And a lot of people, you go into a depression, we get laid off, you get fired for something, and you realize, oh my God, my rent is due. Now I got the money. It's very stressful. And unfortunately, we don't talk about this a lot, but there is a percentage of people who get laid off who will not be necessarily in the land of the living because they can't deal with the pressure of having this happen to them, with all their responsibilities and everything else. For some people, their job defined who they were as a person. Without that job, they're not worth anything. I've met people who worked at Amazon and Google who, where they were their job, they drank the company Kool-Aid, so to speak, and they had no personality or life outside of their job. So when the time came for a layoff in their department and they got laid off, it was soul wrenching for them. It was very, very difficult. And I don't wish that on anybody, to be in that position or to feel like that, because now you got to manage these feelings and your finances is tricky and you got to put yourself out in the market to get another job. That's why I'm like, listen, start something on the side, particularly if you have high tech skills. I always suggest probably consulting is a better path. Starting a small agency or consultancy is a better path because you get to use the skills that you already have and translate it into something that provides value for people and companies in which they are willing to pay you for that value because it's the fastest kind of business to start. And the learning curve is not as steep than, hey, I'm going to do an e-commerce business. That's good. Love e-commerce. Thing is, with e-commerce, takes a while to start. It's a lot of time and investment and a lot of skills you have to learn. But if you're in a position where, hey, I'm a software engineer and I know all of these things, I have all of these skill sets, well, guess what? There's other businesses that will pay you for a couple of hours of your time or for you to handle this small project for them that you do probably in a few hours. And you could be compensated for that. And you could just hedge that money just in case you get that email one morning saying, hey, thanks, but no thanks. Make sure you turn in your badge. Right. So I'm very big on folks finding pathways and creating consultancies or agencies to be a freelancer while they're working at their job to turn around and give them a moat of protection when these things happen, right? Because it's one thing to get fired, it's another thing to get laid off. Okay. I know a YouTuber here, Trent, who's a sales YouTuber. He talks about SDRs and AEs and how to cold call. About a year ago, so he got laid off from his job. And I watched this man go through a roller coaster of emotions and spiraled all over the place. The reason why he was able to survive financially during that time, besides, he had a YouTube channel, is that because he made a lot of money and he's a guy who was very financially conscious and saved a lot of his money. So when he got laid off, he had a nice nest egg to, take a break, breathe, go through the emotional things he needed to go through before going back out in the field and getting back on a horse and going out and finally landing a sales job of his dreams right now. You should check him out, especially those older videos. But not everybody is going to have that, right? You got people who are working these different jobs, making a lot of money. I'm not talking about the people making 50, 60,000 a year. I'm talking about people who are making two, three, 400, $500,000 a year who will wind up in a similar situation, but will have not have put away enough money to survive a year, or would not have, like I suggest, start something on the side, something like consultancy or a small agency on the side where it's lower overhead and higher profit, where you can start building that confidence of going out on your own, understanding how to market and sell yourself and your skill sets, which overall builds your confidence. So that when these things happen, it's like, oh well, I'm gonna, yeah, what, it sucks, but I just give me three more clients and I'm good, right? And I'll get another job on the way. That's the sort of security that I'm always for. And so, as you out there might watch this at some point in time, understand if you're making that type of money, that you are not immune to a layoff or to be fired. And you should not depend on the CEO of the company who's about to tell you to peace out to say nice things about you. Because what Mark Zuckerberg did hurt those 3,600 people that he's laying off or started to lay off now. Because if he just said, "Hey, we're doing layoffs, we're going a different direction," that would have been one thing. But he didn't. He said that these were the worst of the worst people working at his company, and these are the people that he was letting go. That is not something you want said about you when you're out on the market like that, and people are going to be checking where you got laid off from. And everybody on LinkedIn knows it. Because if you're a big company and you're looking for the best of the best, why would you want to take Facebook's crap? You wouldn't want to do that. So it's unfortunate that he said that. And don't get me wrong, there are people out there who knew that they was probably going to get laid off because they had scored low in their performance reviews back in October, November, and they already knew it. And they proceeded to make sure to go out there and interview and get a job before this. So they already got their jobs, right? The proactive ones. You're like, oh, let me start good. Let me get a job by December. And they already have a job. So they're good. But the ones who didn't, the ones where this is going to blindside them, even though according to Mark, these are the people who had low performance reviews, they should have already known by November, October that, they probably are going to get, axed. They should have already known because allegedly, according to what he has said, these are people with lower performance reviews and they know they have their lower performance reviews. They should have been, out there trying to secure themselves. But we know there are people who got blindsided. Already seen certain posts on people on X who got let go today. Okay. Even though I'm like, well, I read the article. I know that you're considered the crap of the crap. And that's why they let you go, allegedly. Right. That's what Mark said. So if you think you're going to be in that position where a CEO is going to say something like that on the biggest business platform in the world where you're going to be going to look for a new job, and you fit in that, and you in the danger zone, I would highly start looking for other jobs and things to do. At the same time, I would start assessing the skills I have, some that are transferable to things I could sell. Now, I don't recommend jumping into e-commerce because it takes a while unless you've already been in it. Takes some good startup capital, takes a lot for marketing, knowing how to copyright and drive traffic, and then you have to fulfill. And so it takes longer to actually get that going and to keep it going in a way that can support your lifestyle. And if you're making that much money, that's a lot of lifestyle to support, especially if you're living up way above your means, which is unfortunate that, that's the case for a lot of people. So I suggest, doing freelancing. I suggest being the consultant, having an agency if that's in your skill set, because people start in marketing agencies and don't know the first thing about SEO, copywriting, Facebook ads, Google ads, or anything because it's just easy. Instead of being like, hey, I'm a software engineer, I know how to do this, or I'm in cybersecurity, I know how to do these things really well. Let me go package up my skill set and go to other companies, maybe that are a bit smaller, that I can help and are willing to pay me because they cannot afford a full-time cybersecurity person, for example, right? That will help you probably get a job faster because for some reason when you consult certain things, people all of a sudden want to hire you full time. I don't know why that happens. It's just like it just happens that way sometimes. But you'll be better off because then you'll be able to insulate yourself against the things that are happening here. So you gotta be smart because there's a lot more people who are going to be laid off. There's a lot more YouTubers who are going to be telling us how they got laid off from their six-figure job. There's going to be a lot more in 6 months. Hey, I still can't find a job. I'm gonna try to be a full-time content creator, and then they're gonna really understand how hard it is to be a content creator and make money on these platforms because they don't understand that life yet. And then you're gonna have people who are gonna be like, oh, I got a job, but it's only paying me, 50, $60,000, and I'm studying to do this. You're gonna see all those people because they're out there now. And you're gonna see more of those people in the future. So hopefully, if you were in that position or you know a friend in that position and you care about this friend, make sure you give them or pass this video on or share it. Because I don't like seeing people unemployed and then they can't figure themselves out and they're then, in a terrible position. I don't want to see that. Generally, I don't want to see that. I'm always the person that's like, look, while you're here, have your side thing. Always have a side thing. Never work for anyone and never have another way in which you make money. Whether you invest your money in some things and you actively run a service or you invest in someone who's running the service and you get a piece of it. Never rely on one income stream. Never rely on one job because people are going to people and companies are going to do the what they should be doing for themselves. And I understand that because I'm a business owner. I have people who I pay as my employees. I need to do the best thing for me in situations. And while it's hard, I must do it because my business must continue because I have my own obligations and things to handle. So you must understand that you are in that position too. Don't get lazy. Don't get to these jobs and get lazy and think, oh, they're not going to do nothing to me. Don't get lazy. If you don't like the job, do your best to find another job. Find another job. You'll probably get paid more depending on what you do. This is not always true for everybody, but for those who are making a certain amount of money, find another job. Go out there and network. Go make your company pay for those conferences. Some of you, your companies have a whole bunch of money for you to go to conferences. That's free money. Take advantage of it. Go to those conferences, up your skills, meet new people, network, put your resume in, let people know that you're looking for another place to be while you're evaluating your current skill sets. I'm a software engineer. I'm a cybersecurity expert. I do this at work. Do people buy this outside of this? Find that route of being a consultant. Find that route of maybe starting a small agency and learning those skills so that you can secure yourself so you won't be out here. So when the next time, you're working for Mark, at Meta, and he just said, oh, I'm getting rid of this department. We're going to do another layoff. Only 5% of people this time. You don't have to worry about it because if you get laid off, you just get 2 or 3 more clients in your consultancy and you're good. If you don't get laid off, great. Or you've built a network enough that if you need a new job, it's there for you. You're good. That's what you need to do. That's what everyone needs to do. No more, we're going to be in a position of victimhood all the time, right? Because a lot of people are in a position of victimhood because the stuff just happens. We cannot control what your employer decides to do today or tomorrow. What we can control is what we do to secure ourselves financially. We can figure out a side hustle. We can figure out investing. We can figure out getting better with our money. We can figure out, networking and getting another job, hopefully with more money. We can figure all those things out. We cannot control what your company does, but you can control what you can for you to make sure that no matter what happens, that you always land on something soft. So, as if for tonight, I want to keep y'all too long. We've been on for almost half an hour. I am the Nerdy Entrepreneur. This will be up on the channel. If you want to watch it from the beginning, go ahead. And if you thought this advice, this video was interesting or good, make sure you dump something in the comments. Let me know. And make sure to subscribe. And until next time, peace.